Because that's what the law does. The law looks to restrict. Grace looks to prevent or to provide access to. Now watch this. In Romans. We'll get back to Romans chapter 3. But now the righteousness of God apart from the law is revealed, being witnessed by the law and the prophets, even the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus to all and on all who believe. So how do we receive grace? By faith. We don't receive grace because it's a church. You don't receive grace because you're a Foursquare church. You don't receive grace because you're a Catholic. You don't receive grace because you're a Lutheran. You don't receive grace because you're of the lineage of John and Charles Wesley. No, you get grace by faith. And I've termed faith is simply this: knowing God and doing what He says. Not just belief, but it is knowing God and doing what He says. Now watch this as we continue. For there is no difference, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Who's all? Everybody. That's all. Look at somebody next to you and say, you're all. You're all. We all have fallen short. Being justified freely by His grace through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus, whom God set forth as a propitiation by His blood through faith to demonstrate His righteousness, because in His forbearance God has passed over the sins that were previously committed. So here He's saying that God is going to make a decision to overlook all of your sin. And you didn't deserve it. You didn't deserve it because, again, what are the penalties of sin? Death. So you are deserving of death, but God is going to overlook your deserving of death, and He's going to look at you and release life to you to demonstrate, verse 26, to demonstrate at the present time His righteousness, that He might be just and the justifier of the one who has faith in Jesus. So what is propitiation? I want to give you a definition of propitiation. So grace comes through Jesus. Grace cannot be understood outside of a relationship with Jesus, and grace is our reward for His punishment. Propitiation simply means to meet the demands of sin, which is death. To meet the demands of sin. So Jesus is our propitiation. He met the demands of sin. Now, this is how you mix how grace comes into this picture of what propitiation is. That you were deserving of a penalty. You were deserving of punishment because you did wrong. And in its place, I'm going to give you grace. Not just mercy, but I'm going to give you grace. And I'm going to show you the difference. Mercy says, listen, you did wrong, and I'm not going to judge you for it. That's mercy. But here's grace. Grace is you're driving through the construction zone here in front of our church, and it's 30 miles an hour, and you're going 35, and the Cumberland police pull you over. And because you're going over the speed limit in a construction zone, you can now have your fine doubled. And because you were going over the speed limit, you are deserving of punishment, right? Because you broke the law. So the police officer looks at you, and he says, I'll be back. And so he goes back, and he comes back to you and says, listen, you were going 35 at a 30, and this is a construction zone, and you should be getting a $300 ticket. But instead, here, I want to write this check out to you for $600. That's grace. You are deserving of punishment, and instead of getting punishment, you got a reward. That's grace. See, whoo. Now, religious folks have a problem with that right there. People living under the law have a problem with that right there. Because that's the older brother syndrome. The older brother says, wait a second. He doesn't deserve that. He needs to be judged for that. You need to lay the law on him. But he doesn't want the law laid on him that way. But we're quick to judge other people about that. But I love, this is God. God is so awesome to us. We were deserving of death. But what did He do? Instead of giving us death, He turned around and gave us life. So we got a reward for His punishment. That's grace.